Good afternoon and welcome to the Regulatory Committee. My name is Councillor Fradgley and I am Chair of this committee. Alongside members of the committee, I'm joined today by Olivia Quinn, Democratic Services Officer, Henry Biddington, Environmental Health and Licensing Manager, David Jeffrey, Development Delivery Manager, and John Careford, Head of Development. Committee members, when invited to address the meeting, please ensure your microphone is switched on so that it is picked up via the live audio feed. When you have finished addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Please ensure you have switched off or to silent any other devices that you may have that could interrupt the proceedings. Please note that this meeting is also being broadcast live and members of the public not in attendance today are able to view the proceedings. We now move to the agenda. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough. Have we received any apologies?
Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Harding, Hatch and Mills.
Thank you. Members, are there any disclosures of interest to be made at this point? Thank you. Minutes. If there are any points members wish to raise, please indicate, otherwise I'll take the minutes as noted. Please. Councillor Petrovic and Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you. Just a point on minute 208-218. One of the things that I think is not reflected was a question that I raised in regards to the complaints on handling of enforcement cases, which is not captured in that minute.
I have been given this to read out as an answer to that. Okay? Where there is a question raised at a meeting that has already been addressed within the agenda report, we don't tend to note this separately in the minutes. We would note a question that has been responded to in the meeting, which provided clarification on the detail within the report, depending on the relevance of the response.
Sorry, I did not understand that, but ultimately, if the question was accepted as part of the written question, which we're going to get to, then this confirms that it wasn't, well, that it was raised.
Will this be answered within the meeting? I mean, will this question come up within the agenda items which will be covered?
Well, I think the 2 points here. One is that I definitely raised that question, so I don't understand why it wouldn't be reflected in the minutes. And the second point is that in response to the response, which said that the answer was provided, my point is that it wasn't provided.
Can this be taken offline with the with Olivia?
No, because I would like this to be noted in the minutes.
Sorry, can I refer to you to answer?
Yeah, sure. If I can speak to John and Marcia and we can discuss this at the next meeting just to get clarification.
That's fine, but I'm not going to be able to then accept the minutes.
I think that is the only resolution that we have. Thank you very much. Are you satisfied with that? Right, Councillor Harvey, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Minutes of the licensing panel meeting on the 17th of 25, item 4 on our agenda. Minute number 211 is a lengthy minute, but if we turn to page 5, the full paragraph above the resolution, the grammar is incorrect. The conclusion, it reads, Mr. X as private operator license, as it found insufficient evidence to conclude that they were not fit and proper persons to hold such licenses. The word insufficient, in my reading and understanding, should be there was sufficient evidence. That's an error of fact. Thank you.
That will be noted and changed in the minutes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The advice that you received in response to Councillor Petrovic's comments on the minutes, may I ask, is that advice from the monitoring officer?
It's the advice I received from Olivia just before the meeting started. So, did that come from you?
Yes, so we're going to discuss this with the monitoring officer. So if we defer the minutes, we vote to defer the minutes for this time, and they'll be coming back.
Thank you, Olivia.
Right, do we take a vote to defer the minutes then? Who would propose deferring the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Petrovic. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Can we vote to defer the minutes? Thank you, councillors. Item number 4 on the agenda. If there are any points members would like to raise, please indicate. Otherwise, I'll take these minutes as noted. Those are pages 3 to 14. Any comments on those those agendas?
My earlier intervention should have been in relation to minutes of subcommittee, not minutes of the committee. I beg your pardon.
Thank you for that clarification. Agenda item 5. There are no members of the public here and no questions received. So we move on to item 6, councillor questions. We have 3 councillor questions from Councillor Petrovic, and these have been circulated to the committee. I ask David Jeffrey to respond to the questions raised. In line with the Constitution, there are no supplementary questions. Thank you. Do you want these read out, or shall we take them as read?
I think it'd be fine to read them.
Sorry?
I think it would be better to read them for the audience
To read
because
them
they
for the
won't have them if we have any.
Fine. Question number 1. The enforcement update report shows that enforcement workloads continue to rise, with over 300 open cases on hand, the highest level in at least 3 years, and 188 cases already logged in 2025 alone, pages 16 to 17 in the papers. Given this sustained pressure, can officers clarify how performance against the key internal indicators for enforcement is currently being measured? Specifically, which KPIs or service expectations are currently not being met? And what mitigation actions, process improvements, or resource adjustments are being put in place to address missed targets and ensure case progression is maintained?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. Obviously, you know me, I'm David. My role now is Development Delivery Manager, not Team Leader. In that role, I've taken over the function of the enforcement team. Claire Einan, who you know well, is the team leader beneath me. Just for clarification, as per the table at 1.21.1 of the report, the team have actually logged 554 cases as of 2025 at the time of publication, not 188 as the question implies. The number of cases received this year is likely to exceed 600, but may not surpass the all-time high of last year, which was 651 cases. So looking at that then, 2,750 cases have been logged and opened since 2021, and officers have closed about 2,436 of these, so around 89% of them have been closed. 188 cases is the number of cases received this year that currently still remain open. So there's still more. So we agree there is sustained pressure on the council to investigate and take enforcement action across the district on a wide range of matters. One of the challenges we face in building an effective enforcement service lies in reconciling a bit of a disconnect between the resources and the high profile that a failure to enforce against bad development would have. It's a significant question for all participants to grapple with in respect of proportionality in the way in which limited resources are used. It's not always appropriate for the council to take enforcement action, and the NPPF, along with other relevant paragraphs of the planning practice guidance, advise that local authorities should take enforcement action when they regard it expedient to do so. bearing in mind other material considerations. Part of understanding how performance is maintained and managed against the backdrop of high pressure and high demand is to understand the factors which contribute to the pressure and the demand that the enforcement team is under, and the steps which are being taken to minimise those factors. The key factors, as I see it at the moment, that contribute to this pressure are a lack of resources invested in the enforcement function, a shortage of people with appropriate knowledge and skills in the sector, high levels of development within the district, rising number of complaints as the community becomes more aware of planning control as a means of shaping their communities, a lack of public and political understanding of the legalistic, technical and detailed nature of the necessary work, and a lack of public and political understanding and support for officers and agreed priorities. Turning to performance, there are no KPIs relating to enforcement, and there's no legislative obligation upon the Council to take enforcement action. Nevertheless, my expectations are for continuous improvement whilst I'm in the post, and an efficient service, which is one that sets clear priorities and has an eye to expediency. I'll be looking to undertake an analysis of the service as a whole in the new year and welcome discussions on the reporting on the service as we move forward, and to effectively communicate the potential of the enforcement service. I'll be looking to involve council in this and to increase understanding of what we can do. My aim will be to build upon the existing framework within which performance priorities and management of cases are successfully managed in a number of ways. This includes a focus on establishing sufficient resources, addressing staff numbers, market supplements and training needs, which members will be fully aware of, establishing an agreed policy framework for the enforcement, which is our enforcement plan, which is regularly updated and endorsed by members and adhered to by officers and members, create a prioritisation table within that plan that defines a formula for prioritising casework, publish a process flowchart so that decision making is transparent. We have that, it will be updated, it will be adhered to. Recognising the importance of officer wellbeing, commitment and training. Integrating high quality management arrangements, including performance standards, intelligent use of data and information systems, and regular progress reporting, both within the service and to this committee. Adopting a more proactive approach to supporting developments to achieve compliance with approved plans and conditions and Section 106s, successfully prioritising negotiated solutions over confrontation, notices and prosecutions, strengthen collaboration within the Council's legal teams, working closely with development management colleagues to review established template conditions so that we aren't imposing conditions which are futile, and increased awareness of the interests and expectations of stakeholders and the planning inspectorate. We will also be looking to promote the value and successes of the service. Thank you.
Thank you for that very full and detailed answer. I think we all need that sent to us so that we can actually peruse it in detail, because I don't think there's so much information there, and I see from the reaction around the room there are going to be subsequent questions coming forward. We've not been allowed to ask supplementary questions at this point, but I think there will be supplementary questions coming in the near future. Councillor Rock.
It's a point of order, Chair. The question that's been asked here, well, I thought we usually got written answers to questions.
Another point of order.
It's a point of order I'm raising.
It's a point of order that's being raised. There is no supplementary. No. So, Councillor Rock, this is a question on the report.
It's a point of order I'm raising. Yes.
Yes.
So the question that's been presented appears to be a question relating to the report. And the answer that's been given also seems to be relating to information that's in the report. And what I was going to suggest is, given that, would it be better to consider these answers and I don't know what more is coming, when we get to the report, because I think Councillor Petrovich has quite rightly given notice of the sort of queries that are likely to come up. On the other hand, I think in the past we've had written responses. That's the point I'm making. Perhaps we're doing it in the wrong order, is the question. Literally a point of order.
Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
Yes, Chair.
Is this a point of order?
Well, actually, it's not a question for the officers, so I'm allowed to speak to the chair, aren't I? So my question to you is, that was quite a detailed response that we got from the officers just then, and I wonder if, before we proceed to the report, if it might be, we might have to pause in order to obtain this, but I think that we need a copy of what's just been read out to us so that we can take that speech there in conjunction with the report in front of us, and if we need to pause for 15 minutes until we've got a copy of that, then so be it. But that was quite detailed. It's not in front of me, and there are points within that that relate to the report that you've done for the committee that I think are relevant, and so therefore before we proceed we actually need a copy of that. Can I ask you the other thank you.
May I say, I think that is a very sensible suggestion. However, I do think we ought to have the written responses to question 2 and 3 in case the same issues arise with those other 2 questions. Can I just... sorry.
I have quite comprehensive notes. I'm happy to share them, whether it's outside the procedure.
My thought was, as we're not being allowed to ask questions on your answer, we need to have that written up so we can take away, and those questions, from what I'm being told that we can do, will come outside this committee unless they come up in the agenda discussions that we're going to have following these questions being placed.
With respect, Chair, we still need a copy of what's just been read out to us, I think, in order to go with this. And if we need to pause, then so be it, because there was an awful lot of information there, and some of those facts need to be taken on board, or some of the assertions need to be taken on board by this committee.
Councillor Harvey.
I know what's been said, and I know the advice that's been given. My preferred course of action would be to deal with matters orally, as in compliance with the Constitution, for the answers which have been given to be appended to the minutes of this meeting, and then they can be presented next time round for confirmation, and questions can be asked and answered as matters arising from consideration of those minutes. I think that's a pragmatic way forward.
Councillor Petrovic.
I think given the frequency of these meetings and the, I would say, urgency of this matter, in my opinion, I would not want to wait until, when is the next meeting? February, January, to do that. March, yes, 12th of March. So I would not be in favour of that.
A chat. Can I just say as chair, Can we please have a paper copy of the answers to each of these questions, with the councillors understanding that they cannot ask questions on these answers at these points, but the information there might be relevant to the discussions that will come up later on the agenda items. So I think people will be then fully informed as to where they want those discussions to go. Would everybody agree to that as a way forward?
And that will be the copy of what the officers just read out to us now,
Yeah.
would it?
Yes, and I assume that there are equally detailed answers to the other two questions which can be printed out.
Except question 3, because there's likely to be covered during the report.
We'll adjourn the meeting for 20 minutes, time to actually print and time for councillors to read through the answer. Right. So the council has actually just had a recession in order to receive the written answers to the questions posed by Councillor Petrovic. There's been a short amount of time to scan them because we cannot ask questions directly on those during this meeting. So are you content now to carry on the meeting, councillors? Thank you. We shall move on then to item 7 on the agenda, enforcement update. I invite David Jeffrey to present the report.
Questions, sorry, point of order. Are we not going to finish the questions?
Oh, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I have actually skipped too quickly because we are running out of time and I mistakenly zipped on. I will read out the other 2 questions which have been put by Councillor Petrovic, to which we have the written answers to question 2, but not question 3. Question 2. The Enforcement Update report confirms that 568 enforcement cases have been closed so far in 2025. Could officers set out how many complaints have been received from the members of the public via email or post after the District Council enforcement team closed the case? This refers specifically to the complaints regarding handling of enforcement cases. By handling, I mean complaints concerning the timeliness of responses, the clarity or frequency of communication, perceived delays in progressing a case, the quality of explanations provided, or concerns about decisions not to investigate or take action. In addition, of the 568 cases closed this year, how many of the residents submitting a handling complaint have received a written response to their complaint from the district enforcement team? Thank you. Will you read out the answer?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, planning enforcement is in many ways an inherently contentious activity. Complaints about the service, the way it's administered, and its overall aims and objectives may arise from any party with a vested interest in the outcomes of development. These include developers, neighbours, councillors and others. Informal queries, complaints or expressions of dissatisfaction are not registered as formal complaints and are not monitored. As such, I'm only able to advise in respect of formal complaints. Where customers make a complaint, they are directed towards the council's formal complaints procedure. I note the question purports to seek only information about the process of handling enforcement cases. However, it also includes a query about complaints where concerns about the decision not to investigate or take action are raised. In this respect, for clarity, I would advise that the Council's formal complaints procedure expressly excludes any right to appeal against a decision made by the Council or its duties. For instance, criticism of a planning decision, unless it's with regard to not following correct procedure, should not be handled as a formal complaint. I would note that complaints of this nature are not straightforwardly separable from complaints about the planning service overall or from the handling of planning applications, many of which, of course, will be related to enforcement matters. Decisions not to take action or to investigate are undertaken in accordance with the Council's adopted enforcement plan and scheme of delegation. Accordingly, there have been a very small number of formal complaints received after the SDC enforcement team has closed cases this year. I have been able to identify 3. These include 2 complaints about not taking formal action and a complaint about the handling of a listed building enforcement case. One of these remains pending consideration, and neither of the other 2 complaints were upheld. I can confirm that the Council's standard procedure for handling formal complaints sends an acknowledgement of the receipt of the complaint and further correspondence in respect of the decision. There have been 0 formal complaints upheld in respect of enforcement activities, the timeliness of responses, the clarity of or frequency of communication, or perceived delays in progressing a case, or the quality of explanations provided. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There'll be no questions on that, but I shall now read out the 3rd question submitted. The minutes of the Regulatory Committee meeting held on the 18th of September 2025 state that the revised draft of the Local Enforcement Plan review would be circulated to councillors for consultation following the workshop held on the 4th of August. Could officers confirm the expected timeline for when this revisited draft will be issued to members in writing, and whether a formal schedule has been set for consultation, feedback, and the subsequent workshop to consider members' comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. A revised enforcement plan will be circulated and we will commence consultation in the new year. We will be aiming for this mid-January start with a 6-week consultation phase to include members and the public and advertised via the Council's website and parish newsletters. There will then be a further workshop with members to take on board feedback and move towards a finalised version. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That concludes the councillors' questions. May we now move on to item... Sorry, Councillor Wally.
Yes, can I ask Councillor Petrovic, please, what prompted you to ask these questions? What prompted you to ask these questions, please? Was there anything... Was there
I
anything
think that's not
No,
appropriate at the time.
Sorry,
as Chair, I'm just saying that's not appropriate this time. We are going to be having a further meeting where those issues might be discussed, but not at this particular point, if that's okay. So if we can move on to item 7, enforcement update. Please may I invite David Jeffrey to present the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. This is a regular update, so members will be familiar with the format of the report. I'm just going to take the opportunity, therefore, to take a quick cantilever through the report and guide members through the salient points. Page 15 of members' report provides a summary of the cases received by year, recent cases closed, and the total number of cases closed. Members will note that the total number of cases closed, including historic older cases, currently 568, is likely to match or exceed recent maximums. Since 2021, as I say, around 2,750 cases have been opened and officers have successfully closed around 89% of those. Page 15 sets out the rise in cases received, page 16 sets out the rise in cases received in graph form and elaborates a little on the nature of some of the demand on officer time. Page 17 has a useful breakdown of live cases, including historic cases, with the oldest case remaining from 2019. Members will note that the majority of the outstanding cases arose in the last 2 years. That's close to 80% of the outstanding cases. Whilst officers are acting immediately on new cases arising, they are maintaining a continual progress on older cases to ensure appropriate action and closure as necessary. The local enforcement plan. Paragraph 1.35 refers to the local enforcement plan, and members who attended the committee workshop will recall the start of the process to begin in August the 4th. Work on the local enforcement plan review is ongoing, and this has included further liaison with the portfolio holder in respect of a revised version of the prioritisation table and the flow chart. Whilst this has been drafted following what was discussed at the committee workshop, a revised enforcement plan will be circulated and we will commence consultation in the new year. We'll be aiming for this mid-January with a 6-week consultation phase to include members of the public and advertised via the Council's website and parish newsletters. There will then be a further workshop with members to take on board their feedback and move towards a finalised version. Action taken at the bottom of page 17 includes a table that has the number of notices served per quarter, and at the top of page 18 includes details of a number of appeals. The court hearing referred to at paragraph 1.51 was adjourned until the 17th of December, and so there's no further update in that respect. Enforcement appeals. A number of enforcement appeal decisions are noted in the table on pages 18, 19 and 20. These are mixed, with some allowed and some dismissed. Since the publication of the report, a further appeal decision has been received, quashing one of the Council's enforcement notices. That was a notice which had been issued in August 2023. Page 21 summarises in table form the pending enforcement appeals. But as previously mentioned, one of those appeals has now been determined with the notice being quashed. Chair, that concludes my summary of the report before members. Officers recommend that the report be noted, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do I have any questions from councillors? Councillor Petrovic?
Sorry for this update. My question is in regards to 5.8.1 in regards to staffing and specifically advertising for additional S106 senior post and permanent senior post. Would you be able to clarify when that is going to go out to advert? And then where are you planning to advertise that, and whether you have thought about advertising on LinkedIn? Because I've done some research into local authorities that have been advertising for planning officers on LinkedIn, specifically kind of from their council's profiles. And interestingly, I did actually find that there was quite a lot of local authorities. So from my kind of initial research, there were 174
Excuse me, may I
applicants.
just actually put in a piece of advice? Questions about which pertain to HR are not in the remit of this committee. That is where things are being advertised, etc., etc. That might be a question for an HR committee, I am being advised.
Sorry? Employment. Okay, well, I guess maybe then just if we can stick to the, because it is in the report, when this is going to go out to advert, and do you know where it will be advertised?
Yes, it's out to advert now. We've got 2 posts for principal principal officers in enforcement. So we've retitled the senior officers to principal officers so that they may be more appealing to people occupying similar roles in neighbouring authorities. They went out to advert about a week and a half ago. The closing date is December the 15th. That includes the market supplement, which has been approved for both of those posts. One of them is a full-time permanent post. One of them is a 18-month post that will be focused principally on Section 106 compliance matters. They were advertised both in the West Midlands Jobs, the Council's own website, and on the Planning Jobs Board hosted by the Royal Town Planning Institute.
Have a supplementary.
Sorry, so can you just confirm that those are the same places we advertised last time when, from my memory, we didn't get any applicants?
It's likely to be similar, but it predates my appointment, so I can't be 100% certain, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis, you were next.
Yes, just following on from that, I think Mr. Careford would be able to answer that question about if it's the same sort of advertising that we did previously, which was unsuccessful.
I haven't got the data to hand, but I think the key point is that there are only certain places you can recruit professional officers from. There is a corporate LinkedIn account that does promote the jobs as well. As I've said at previous committees, and this is why we've looked at the market supplement and the job title, it's trying to make the job as attractive as possible. I can come back to you, Councillor, in terms of exactly where we did do it last time, but they are the standard ones, and the planning professional magazine and website is the one where most planners look for appointments. So that's the right place to go in that respect.
Thank you. And yes, I mean, just following on from that, I know other services within the council do use headhunting agencies to recruit and have done so very successfully. So that may be worth thinking about. But actually, I had a couple of questions to David about, just for clarification for me, maybe I misunderstand this. 1.61, enforcement appeal decisions. This table, is it complete? Because it doesn't have, I believe there has been a decision over the Burnside, which doesn't seem to be in this table.
I suspect that the planning appeal decision you're referring to was a planning appeal rather than an enforcement appeal.
Right, okay, thank you. And I don't know, David, if the decision I've just got in front of me, which came through yesterday, this was land adjoining Woodview, 177 Binton, Stratford-upon-Avon. Chair, I mean, I just had this yesterday and read through, and I'm really concerned. I did circulate this paper to the committee, that there do seem to be a number of flaws in the process in this decision. I'm not an expert, but the inspector's report says, I acknowledge the appellants should have received copies of these appendices. The allegation should state material change of use, as this is the correct act of development as defined by statute. Going on. While enforcement notice alleging a material change of use does not need to recite the previous use or uses, this can be helpful to make it clear why the council considers there's been a material change. An enforcement notice must be drafted to tell the recipient fairly what they have done wrong and what they must do to remedy it. I won't read the whole of that paragraph, it's quite extensive. For the reasons given above, I conclude the enforcement notice does not specify with sufficient clarity the alleged breach of planning control or the steps required for compliance. Finally, the enforcement notice is invalid and will be quashed. Now, there seem to be a number of flaws in process here that I wonder, I'd welcome some comments on that, because as I say, my reading as a member, not an expert in enforcement or planning, seems to suggest that this appeal has been, that the case for the council has been dismissed on a number of procedural points rather than the actual merit or otherwise. So I would like some comment on that.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to do that. Where the inspector recognises that appendixes should have been forwarded, that's the closest you'll get to an apology from the planning inspectorate. They are meant to forward those appendices. Regrettably, they failed to do so. Turning to some of the flaws with the enforcement notice, members will be aware that this is an enforcement notice that was issued in 2023. And there is a great deal to learn from this case, because I think it ably describes one of the reasons why enforcement notices and action on enforcement matters is so slow. And that's the involvement of the planning inspectorate, where it has these matters before them. As you'll be aware, the site visit on this took place in September 2025. Some 2 years after the enforcement notice was issued, and without going into specific details, things were quite different on the ground by the time the inspector got there from when the point that the enforcement notice was issued. Nevertheless, there are things to learn in terms of drafting enforcement notices and perhaps the closeness with which our officers work with legal colleagues in issuing those notices where they are complex. So we will be taking those matters up, and we will be bringing those issues forward. Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask Councillor Harvey, please, for your point?
Thank you. I think you've touched on the answer to the question I was going to ask. I'm sure that particular decision wasn't welcome. Having anything quashed from the council's point of view isn't welcome, and I presume you have or will conduct an inquiry, your own form of inquiry, as a matter of good management practice to learn the lessons. But my question was going to be about the basis upon which an enforcement notice is issued and the degree to which planning staff liaise with legal staff before an enforcement notice is issued. Now, you touched upon it. Would it be helpful, well, I would find it helpful if you could say a few words about what that process of cooperation is and how normal it is.
It is entirely normal, but it is operated on a case-by-case basis, as you might expect, depending on the complexity and the merits of the case. As I say, the enforcement officers work closely with legal in drafting notices when they think it's necessary and discuss with their line manager whether that's necessary in each individual case. So, as I say, we will conduct a review and try to understand how we might do that more effectively. As I say, there are options in respect of that, and different approaches have different benefits and implications for the service, and so we need to manage that effectively. Thank you.
Do you have a further question?
No, I'm more than happy that David has outlined how lessons will be learned and actions as appropriate will be taken, and I do accept that these are complicated matters which, unless you're in possession of all the facts and all the circumstances, it's easy to come to inappropriate conclusions.
Councillor Rock.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 or 3 separate points. Would it be okay if I did them one at a time?
That would be fine.
Yeah. First of all, there was a discussion about recruiting officers and so on. And first of all, can I say I wouldn't want to be an enforcement officer? So I like many jobs in the council, I respect those people that do these difficult jobs, and I commend them to that. And so, in particular, recruiting, and I don't know to what level on resources that is an element, but I did notice when you in the response earlier on, you appear to be looking for already qualified people with planning backgrounds. And in my far too long experience as a councillor, and I won't name names, but one of our most effective enforcement officers happens to be an ex-policeman. Some of the skill sets, I noticed Councillor Wally Hoggins raising her eyebrows about the effectiveness of ex-police officers. Yeah, well, I thought you might be. But so one wonders whether some personal development based on people's previous experience may well be useful. So I would commend that to our senior officers to think about whether some personal development on earlier backgrounds may be useful, and we might look in a wider pool for that. So perhaps that's not an answer for that, but the first question I wanted to ask is on the councillor's private e-planning pages, it does list the enforcement cases in your ward. And I do notice, I'm aware of enforcement complaints being made, and it is some time before they appear on those cases. So I'm asking how long they actually, there seems to lie fallow for some time before they get put on these stats. Are officers aware of that?
It's not something that I'm aware of. From my point of view, they are registered and dealt with as promptly as possible.
So one sends an email in, one gets an acknowledgement, thank you for your blah, 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 because we get treated like a member of the public in that respect. But I'm aware members of the public write to me and I said, well, you must put it in. If they don't want to be involved in it, I'll do it for them. And then it doesn't appear in my list for some weeks. And I just wondered why that is. So it's presumably sitting in somebody's inbox, is it?
I'd assume it goes to the planning enforcement inbox and waits to be attended to. And there may be some lag in attending to it, but I wouldn't think it would be significant.
Right, okay. The other thing, some of the questions that we're asking here about process, and we did have a short discussion about the Constitution. And when I was chairing this committee, it was suggested we're here to, this committee, and I think we all agree probably there's some shortcomings in the way the constitutional framework is written. If we're here to scrutinise the planning enforcement system, or if that's supposed to happen at scrutiny, I think that's something that wants to be clarified, because we're asking questions about how it works. We get the report here, and the obvious thing to me is that this committee should be scrutinising its operation, whereas I think the constitutional framework suggests it's otherwise. And I think if we're going to look at that, let's look at it and let's find out where it's supposed to be happening. I think scrutiny's got their hands full everywhere else. So I would commend that to the chair to work with officers and the officers here to tidy that up and find out who is supposed to be looking at it.
Can I just say, as chair, I will take that up with officers outside this meeting.
The other point I wanted to make is if we look at pages 22 and 23, it says 5.21, there are no financial implications with this report. 5.31, there are for planning enforcement there are considerations about delivery of service using money responsibly, about using the money responsibly, which seems to be a conflict with that there are no financial implications. And then on 6, it says there are no risks associated with this report. Now, I wanted to talk about some of the cases that are listed on here, but I am fearful of doing so in open session, because I know, having spoken to Mr. Careford, decisions have been taken by the head of service, as is quite properly his remit. And he has given me reasons about a particular course of action or a course of not action, which he has explained to me. But I can't go through them. But they relate to some of those things that are in this report. Will we go into those in confidential session? Because I don't want to go into those cases now for fearful of prejudicing actions.
Happy we adjourn for 5 minutes.
I don't want to keep adjourning, Chair, but you know, there are cases here that have been presented to us of what's happening.
Could I suggest...
We could do it at the end.
We could do it at the end, or it could go into the emergency regulatory that we're actually looking to hold early in January.
I'm in your hands, Chair. Or I'm sure Mr. Careford could make a recommendation how we deal with that.
Ask Mr. Careford. Oh, Councillor Curtis, sorry.
I think that this report, where it says, just agreeing with Councillor Rock, there are risks associated with this report and there are financial implications associated with this report. So a simple bland statement saying that there aren't any, I think, is insufficient. I don't think that should wait until January.
Going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes for consultation on an adjournment. Confidential. Very much. The meeting is now open again. Can I just say we've had a discussion about issues raised under agenda item 7, enforcement, and it's been decided that there should be an extraordinary regulatory meeting early in January, which will have an agenda to cover issues which have been raised, some of which are in public, some of which will be in confidential. And that will be, agenda will be published, hopefully, before Christmas. Thank you. May we go back to agenda item 7 on the agenda? I have here, Councillor Wally Hoggins, do you want to raise a point?
Yes. I'm fairly certain, Chair, that we had a discussion at the end of the last meeting regarding the report from planning enforcement. I remember it clearly, and we also had emails at the end of the meeting as well to discuss that. So I wondered what progress had been made with regard to instigating some of those required changes. I think that was done on the basis of the quality of the reports from licensing and environmental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Those issues have been raised with officers. They haven't appeared on this as an agenda item, but they will appear as an agenda item for the extraordinary meeting to be held in January. Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions, and it may be that you might want to defer these to January. I accept you've only just taken over the role, and you've already spoken about many of the changes that you wanted to make. But what I'm interested in is that we've spoken about the number of open cases, or the number of cases, should I say, that have come in. And we have an enforcement policy that's 3 levels, if you like, going down to critical, desirable, and low, let's say low level. So something I've been interested in, and a couple of things I've been interested in, is what is the split of those open cases when they're finally assessed, as to where they fall in. So how many of our open cases fall into each of those categories? And secondly, do the numbers continue to include decline to investigate? So those are sort of things where we've had a complaint, we've logged them, and effectively we've looked at it and said, no case to answer, we close it. Are those recorded in these numbers? Because if that's the case, then you probably can understand, I think that the numbers are distorted and they're not quite as high as they seem, but you may want to consider that. So 2 questions there, whether you answer them today or whether we go to January. I'm comfortable with it. It's something I've been asking for some time, so I'm keen to get to the bottom of it.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shenton, and I think I'll probably say both. Actually, I'll try and answer you a bit now and a bit later, if that's okay. I'm aware of the issue relating to the decline to investigates and your concern that that might include things which it shouldn't. And I think that's the advice you've been given previously, isn't it? That the decline to investigate category of closed cases is a broad church, and historically it's not always been used in a consistent fashion. So it's not reliable in terms of saying that they were actually not investigated in some cases. So in some cases they were investigated and then put down as a category of decline to investigate once some further evidence and facts have been established. For those reasons, it's not right to exclude them. So they have been included in historic figures within our report. But since the middle of the year, I understand that there was a workshop with the enforcement officers to try and clarify what the purpose of that categorisation is, and going forward we're more confident in our figures, but it does make a comparison with sort of historical numbers and amounts of decline to investigate with existing amounts more complex and more of a hazard warning required. But the short answer is yes, they are in there. The overall number of cases that was opened and closed does include decline to investigate cases, whatever they may have been.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from councillors on item 7 on the agenda? Mr Catford.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a couple of observations if councillors don't have any further questions. Just to come back on a couple of points. So the recruitment we're currently undertaking is in respect of principal enforcement officers. They are enforcement planners, they're planning professionals, so they're qualified planners in that sense. And that their role differs from the enforcement officer role, who aren't planners. And I think this is where the issue is particularly rising around recruitment. It's trying to get planners who want to do the enforcement side of that, because that's when you need their expertise around planning judgment. It's right that we have had a number of ex-police officers in the enforcement officer role, but they're not the enforcement planners, and that's been the big problem really in terms of it's the professional side of the job, and that's why we've looked at market supplement as well as the job title, and hopefully we'll be successful on that basis. And if we're not, then we can look at agencies to headhunting. I'm aware we've done that, I think, for some of our legal junior legal posts, so we can look at that. I think the point about the time lag, Councillor, between cases being reported and then being shown on the system, I'll look at that because it should be fairly quick. So I'm not sure why that's happening, but I'll do that. The reference in 5.3.1 about finance, that's in respect of the council plan, and one of the objectives of the council plan being around responsible use of money. That's your council plan, so that's why that's there. There isn't any financial implications directly from this report because it's an update report, and the staffing issues they're already on the establishment, so it's not there's not an additional financial aspect in that respect. Just the general point, we have sought to build resilience within the enforcement team, and that's why we've had some changes to the management structure. So we created a new enforcement team leader post, and then we've created above that the new development delivery manager post that Mr. Jeffrey's in, just to give that sort of corporate and strategic oversight. So obviously this is Mr. Jeffrey's first regulatory committee meeting. It's the baptism of fire, I think. But if I can just give members the comfort that I hear your frustrations and concerns, and we're trying to address those moving forward. So and that's partly what the review of the local enforcement plan is going to do as well. And that, as Mr. Jeffrey said, that work is ongoing as well, and we report back to members as that progresses. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Just a quick point on the comment you made around using the agencies to do the recruitment. Would that have the financial implication? In which case, would we need to approve additional money to do that?
Yes, it would have a financial implication, but I think we'd be able to do it within departmental budgets. So I don't think there'd be an issue for this committee.
Councillor Wally Hoggins.
Yes, can I just ask both officers, I note that in 4.1, the consultation and members' comments, the portfolio holder has been consulted on this report. Can you also tell me if the portfolio holder was consulted on the response to the questions, please?
In response to the questions posed by Councillor Petrovic?
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions before we move on to item 8 on the agenda? Thank you. May I invite Mr. Biddington to present his report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep this as brief. So the report I've submitted is in relation to an update to the Regulatory Committee from the Environmental Health and Licensing Team, and provide an update on the service plan progress. So I'll go straight into it. The report's there for you to read, but I'll briefly outline what the update from the report. So from our environmental health side of the teams first, so our food safety team continues to see good compliance among our food businesses across the district. As we can see, 85.1% still rating 5 or above. Well, it can't get above 5, so 5. And 98.8 still rating broadly compliant, which is 3, 4 or 5. So again, we see good compliance from our food business operators who want to be the best they can be, which is great, and also shows the quality of our officers going out and making sure that they are as good as they can be. The Food Standards Agency require us to do a 6-monthly submission of our enforcement data and inspection data, so that was submitted in October in relation to quarter 1 and 2, and there's some figures on the amount of work that has been carried out by our food and safety team, as well as the routine work. There has also been additional work around inspections at Christmas lights, which on in the Christmas markets, which occurred last weekend, and also at Wellesbourne Market as well, which is one of our larger scale markets in the district. From a health and safety point of view, we continue to facilitate the safety advisory group. Again, we carried out safety visits at the Christmas market and the light switch on, which is our 2 bigger town events, and we monitor and follow up on other events across the district, following the safety advisory groups. The team continues to investigate a fatal accident which occurred within the district, which is obviously takes up a large amount of officer time, and is an incredibly important piece of work that we will continue to do. I obviously can't give you any details on that investigation at this stage. A couple of other highlights from what we've been doing. So we have been working closely with a hospitality premises and a primary authority premises partner, primary authority, who look after the hospitality premises, so it's a national chain of businesses, following an accident that occurred, and actually the work that we've done and the guidance we've given has ensured that the primary authority have changed their advice nationally, so we can show that we've actually changed stuff nationally rather than just within our district. So some excellent work from the officers there, and we've been investigating Legionella cases linked to hot tubs in self-catering premises in the district. Again, which is going to look, we've been working with the UK HSA, which may lead to a national campaign around those because they're pretty unregulated at the moment. So that's something we've been working on. From our environmental protection team, following the DEFRA recommendations, the Cabinet have now approved our revocation of the air quality management areas, and the team are now working on the district-wide air quality strategy, which would be out for consultation in quarter 4. We've been working again with our planning colleagues, and we had a part of an planning inspector appeal where we had put an objection in relation to impacts of noise, and the planner inspector agreed with that, so that was a good result for us, and actually sometimes that can help to set national standards, and we've been working closely with our community safety team in relation to visual assessments of areas in the town centre in relation to rough sleeping. Our licensing team, busy as always. We have produced a statement of licence policy, so it's been revised, and that's went to Cabinet on the 3rd of November, and it was approved. We have been approved an additional role, support officer role, part-time support officer role, which is funded through our licensing fees. As you're probably aware, the licensing team is funded, self-funded through their fees, and we had some capacity within our funding to support a part-time support officer role, which will give the licensing officers more opportunity to carry out enforcement work and project work. And just to note, under the animal welfare primate licensing and regulations from April 2026, it will be an offence for anyone to keep a primate without a relevant licence. So that's a new area of licensing that we're going to have to enforce. So we're going to be doing some training, and we're currently aware of at least one premises that will require a license. Luckily, they don't require, primates does not include humans, so we won't have to license everybody that's got keeping a human. It's quite clear in the legislation that this doesn't include humans, thankfully. We'd be very busy if it did. So taxis, so all our taxi drivers have been provided with safeguarding for passenger they've been provided safeguarding training, which includes child exploitation. This training has been provided by Bernardo's, and a review of the taxi policy is underway, and will be sent. An updated version will be sent out for full consultation in Q4. Licensing panels. Well, you've seen the subcommittee minutes, so that's been quite busy in our licensing panels, which has included revocation of licenses for taxi drivers, dual license drivers and an operator, and also a suspension of a dual license driver as well. The second part of the report looks at the service plan and the internal performance indicators, service-specific performance indicators. So if I take you to the table of environmental health licensing key performance on page 28, we are in Q2, we've achieved 92% of our planned programme food inspections, which is a little under target, but not under target sufficiently for us to be worrying about. It also included a number of new business registration visits and out-of-scope visits, such as things like the food festival. And we, as I say, we've been investigating some quite weighty health and safety incidents as well, which does take a little bit of time away from the officers, although we have got quite good resilience in our resources at this stage. The applications for licensing reached 100% as per our legal timeframes. Programmed, the other two KPIs are annual, but we are on target to achieve both of those. The service-specific performance indicators. So again, we've seen in Q2 an increase in planning applications responded to 75.9%. And I think that's in a correlation of having an additional officer who we managed to get through budget funding last year has come into employment, and it's a marked increase in our responses to planning. Not quite where we want to be, but in my experience, 75.9% response is very good for a local authority. We will continue to strive to get to 95. The other one of note, I guess, is our response to service requests. So again, we've gone up from 87.5 to 91.7% response. So again, we're working on those, trying to making sure that we do respond within the 5 working days. And we've also, over the Q2 period, which is not unusual, that we have seen an increase in service requests. We generally see an uptick in service requests over the summer, particularly around statutory nuisance and noise, smoke, etc., the things that people complain about in the summer months. So yeah, I think that's probably as much as we need to report on. And then the final part of the service planning is the council action plan. So again, we, as per the licensing update, CP1B in priority 1, we have had the licensing policy approved by Cabinet. I think that's going to council on Monday. And then we are working on a taxi policy, and it should be available for consultation in Q4 to be approved hopefully before the end of Q4. The air quality, again, we've delivered the revocation of the air quality management area, which allows us now to work on the air quality strategy, which again should be approved and passed over Q4. The final part, which we are involved with, mostly through a safety advisory group, is around the event process, and that there was a webinar in September to all parish councils on the event process and safety advisory group process. So that's my report. Any questions, welcome.
Thank you very much. Are there questions? Councillor Rock, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing I wanted to say is that my experience with Henry's team is always good, and I congratulate him on that. Obviously, the numbers are one thing, but my experience is always positive. A couple of questions, if I may, both related to water. I'm surprised, apparently the lack of regulation about Legionella surprises me, because in my long and checkered career in industry, Legionella was always a challenge, and perhaps that's because it falls under the HSE, is it? So presumably we're setting about doing some publicity to this burgeoning hot tub industry. Or shall I pause there while we all go for a hot tub dip?
Yeah, well, I think, to be fair, it's not the lack of regulation. I think it's a lack of awareness of the regulation in that setting, because people who may run an Airbnb aren't necessarily bound by health and safety regulations, because it's technically not a workplace. So there is a difference between what we would do in a workplace and what potentially someone would be doing as an Airbnb landlord. So it's a bit of a cross between public health and health and safety. So yes, we will be doing some publicisation with our...
So is that a gap in the regulation then? Does that mean if someone's got an Airbnb and they've got a hot tub, and we know there's a risk of Legionella, there's nothing can be done about it?
I think we could look at it under the management of work, health and safety at work regulations, because it is technically a commercial premises. So that's the route we'll explore. But there is, yeah, it's a bit of a grey area at the stage which we are investigating.
Okay, thank you. You'll be personally aware of some of our interactions with Severn Trent, who have been a bit of a problem in my ward. And they appear to have some statutory exemptions which inhibit our ability to have controls over them. I can't help noticing the news headlines in Tunbridge Wells, and if we had a similar catastrophic event here, looking at our risk management going forward, do we have any role in something like that if that were to occur?
I think our only role would be from an emergency planning and Warwickshire Resilience Forum, which we are part of, intervention. So it would be more of an emergency planning response than any sort of enforcement environmental health response.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to do my impersonation of Donald Rumsfeld. Paragraph 1.2.1 makes reference to the number of known premises. Where the premises are known, they can be evaluated, and that's fine. But where premises are unknown, that's where danger may lurk. So I wonder if you can give us any words of comfort about what the process might be for you becoming aware of premises that serve food that should be inspected but aren't known to you.
Yeah, I can answer that. So actually, this month we are carrying out what we call our district surveys. So we will survey local areas for businesses which aren't on our premises register. But part of that, as we move into a digital world, I think we've moved into a digital world, we might just be a little bit behind, we are also doing internet searches on businesses which may not appear on the high street but may be serving food through other means which aren't visible to the high street. So we are, that's one of our processes which we try and do every 12 months is district surveys, but now we're including an a digital survey as well to identify food businesses which we may not have been aware of who are operating under our radar.
Supplementary, and then I have a second question. I presume you also act on reports given to you by members of the public who...
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Can I move on to my second? My second question is not a Rumsfeld question. It's relating to KPIs. Whenever I see 100% followed by 100%, followed by 100%, I think this target is too easy. And there are a couple.
100% is too easy.
Well, if it's always being achieved, it's not a stretch, is it? In particular, for instance, percentage of applications under Licence Act process within statutory times, and on page 29, responding to licence applications within 28 days. Both of those are being achieved easily. My question would be, why can't... For instance, we do not rely upon statutory limit where it comes to enforcement. There's no obligation to enforce at all. So we could say, we're not doing it. We don't take that attitude. We say we are going to enforce, and we do to certain standards. So to simply say the statute says this, that, and the other is not necessarily, well, that has to be the target. We could do something different. And where you've got a target of 28 days and you're always achieving it, have you considered making that, say, 21 days?
I haven't considered that, no. But it's something we can take away. I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that these KPIs were put in place in April this year, and certainly the service-specific indicators were put into place in April this year, and it's something we reviewed quite heavily, considering we didn't have any key performance indicators prior to April this year. So I think it's something that we will review as we move towards the next set of targets. So I think that's something we certainly can consider.
Thank you. Councillor Petrovic.
Thank you, Chair. Every time I see such high number of premises rated as 5 and 4, I always get very excited. So, because I love food and I love good food and I love clean food. I was wondering, I think we mentioned that in the last meeting, whether we could work with comms team to try and promote some of these businesses that achieve high rating, because I think that's something that would obviously help them as well, promote their business, but also show the public how important this is to us and how well we're doing. That's the first question, if we could do that, and how I'm happy to help with that. And then the second question was on 1.2.3, last paragraph, in relation to the work you've done to assist the community safety team, police team, etc., in regards to inspecting areas that are used by rough sleepers. I was just wondering how the support is provided and in which cases do you intervene, because I think that is something that's really important to the public. So if we could get you involved as soon as possible and as often as possible, that would be really great.
Yeah, so yes to the comms question, I'll take that away. I think that's a great idea, and I think I said last time we should, so I'll definitely follow up this time. In relation to the town, to the environmental visual assessments, so we have been working closely with our community safety team where we feel that then potential public health risk is involved, or public health of the public, or public health of the persons in those situations. It's obviously a difficult area to get progress on, but we have used some of our environmental health interventions to address some of these situations. I'm not sure I can speak about specific interventions at this stage, but certainly where we can use our interventions where it's appropriate, we will do so.
And in terms of, I guess, reporting, is it still best for the public and for us to go to the community safety team in the first instance, and then they would liaise with you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I think the community safety team are the first port of call, but we are constantly working with them, so we work closely with our community safety team.
Thank you. May I call on Councillor Shenton, please?
Start that again. So, yeah, I'm looking at the training in 1.3.1 on safeguarding and sexual exploitation. Was it compulsory attendance by the taxi drivers? Did they have to attend? And if so, how, or if not, how many did attend? And was it delivered online? Or I'm curious as to, if you like, the effectiveness of it and how many people have attended, because obviously it's quite, in licensing terms, it's quite a serious issue. safeguarding and exploitation?
In answer to that, I can't give you the facts on that at this stage. I haven't got them in front of me, but I can take that away and I'll come back to you.
Councillor Grocott?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Mr Benton. Just very quickly, obviously in section 1.2.1, the last paragraph mentions about the hygiene visits for the Christmas lights and the Christmas markets. I mean, I do remember from the SAG last year, the year before last, obviously the crowding was the main issue that was investigated, but there was also a question about the amount of hand washing facilities at the Christmas market. Do you know from last year's event, leading on from that's been resolved?
Yes, we've been working closely with the market provider over the last the last 12 months, and all of those issues. Our officers were out and satisfied at everything at the visits last week.
That's good, because I'm going on Saturday, so just...
Me too.
Yeah, so just taking care. But moving on from that, you did mention the fact that the Christmas lights and the Christmas markets are the biggest sort of events, which obviously have the most coverage with these SAG meetings, that sort of thing. I mean, moving forward, you know, we do get people coming forward now more these days with large-scale events. I mean, I've heard things about people wanting to do Glastonbury on the Wreck, which, I mean, you know, so, which... I was just wondering if we have a lot of Glastonburys on the Wreck. I mean, you've now got a new events portal, which you've sort of captured in the report, and CP3G is very much there talking about the training for parish councillors, but obviously for people doing large-scale events, are they using that portal?
I think if the event occurs on Stratford District Council or public land or requires a road closure, they have to go through that portal. If the event is on private land and doesn't require a road closure, they can go ahead. We work very closely with most of our event venues, so things like Ragley Hall, our larger scale event venues. So most of our biggest events probably aren't actually in the town centre, they're probably at places like Ragley Hall, at the race course, so we work closely with those premises to ensure that we know what events are on and which events need to go to the safety advisory group. We can't force anybody to come to a safety advisory group. It is an advisory group, but most event organisers are very open to the process. And things like if we have large-scale events on the Wreck, etc., we'll have to go through. We'll need a premises licence, and we'll come through the licensing hearing anyway. So yeah. Well, you'll probably see those at a licensing meeting.
Thank you. One last question as well. I was going to go back to page 21, not wishing to pick open any older things. Mentioning with the in nature development, the land at Burnside, Church Lane, Shottery. I mean, most of these enforcement things here are referring to private premises, whereas this is actually a business which is, serving to the public and that. I mean...
Can I just intervene at that point? I think it's been decided to put this update
it's not a planning...
into the extraordinary regulatory meeting. Okay.
Sorry, it's not a planning question at all. Sorry, I was just going to ask a question about it being a business. Obviously, my thoughts are if a general public are going to an area that's got a planning enforcement query over it, do also not the environmental, but from a health and safety aspect, would your team get involved? Because, I mean, some people might think that's a risk that they can take with their business, but how does your team deal with that?
To be honest with you, the two regimes are separated. So a premises can have a licence but not have planning permission. A premises can have planning permission but not have a licence, and that is within the Licensing Act. That's quite clear. So, and from a health and safety point, if we get a complaint about premises not having good health and safety, we would investigate as any other premises whether it's got planning permission or not planning permission. We would obviously work closely with our colleagues in planning enforcement if we felt that there was something that was being operated without planning permission. We work together, but they are ultimately separate regimes.
Yes, I do understand the licence, that would be separate. I just wanted to make sure that that was just an issue that was concerning me about a business operating with these things. Thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. Great report, Henry. Thank you very much. 131, taxis. Really pleased to see about this safeguarding for passengers training. 2 or 3 years ago, I went on a really good external licensing training course. And now, I'm afraid I can't remember the name of the authority. It may have been Sheffield. And I noticed that the review of taxi policy has been completed. This particular local authority had a sort of enhanced level for some taxi drivers. And if a taxi, I don't know how understand the mechanism, how it worked, but the taxi drivers who had the sort of enhanced level license, if you like, agreed to act as the eyes and ears of the local authority and to report and to work with the police if they saw suspicion of, obviously, you mentioned child exploitation, modern slavery, county lines and so forth, because the understanding that this local authority had was that taxi drivers are key participants, unwilling. And I just wonder if as part of the review, if that's something that the team might look at.
I don't think it's anything we've got under consideration at this stage, but we can certainly throw it into the review, Councillor. And obviously we'll be consulting the review as well, so you know any thoughts, etc. like that, please do respond to the consultation.
Thank you. Are there any more questions on this agenda item? Okay, in that case, we move on to where I've put my papers. On to item 9, any urgent business. There are no urgent business. I declare this meeting to be